Hello everyone, I'm Rashmi Bhandary and today I've got two of my students. We've got Babit and Kirtan, and they're both from computer science and they've got into Novigo Solutions, and so congratulations to the both of you.
Thank you.
Yes, great. So now if you can tell what is the role and what's the eligibility criteria, Babit?
Yeah, so the role is a trainee software engineer and the eligibility is 65% throughout. So starting from 10th, 12th and engineering, there needs to be a 65% throughout with no active backlogs.
Okay. And what are the rounds?
So generally I had 3 technical rounds. I guess Babit had only 2 technical rounds.
But in the beginning you didn't have any aptitude and all that?
In aptitude round we had 25 aptitude and 25 coding questions. So 25 coding questions were basically debugging questions. If you know basics of C and C++, you can easily crack it out. And aptitude questions were generally the questions which were taught in our aptitude classes. Where we had some questions like percentages, ratios, and even distance, time and distance, yeah.
Okay. So when you're talking about the coding round, can you give us an example? What is the generic debugging?
So debugging questions were like we had some errors in the code which were like tending to give some final output errors. So we had to basically clear out those errors and pinpoint where the mistakes are and how we can clear it out. And there are some questions like, okay, this is the program, how will be the output of this program? And there were questions like, okay, this is the program, how we can approach this kind of program, give you a general approach. There were a lot of codes which were even as an options. So which kind of code would generally give this kind of output? Choose this following codes.
Do you remember any of it?
I had some questions like, okay, let us have some general factorial kind of questions. Now there is a small problem. There is a small logic in factorial, like return 0 and return 1 for different statements. And we had some questions like, okay, now the program is giving an error 0. Let's say factorial of I is 120 and the program is giving an error 0. Why it's giving an error 0? Because there is an improper return statement passed down. So we had to basically find those errors out of it and basically correct it out.
Okay. Babit, has he missed out on anything? Do you feel that you can add on to this? Yeah.
So the whole technical section.
And everyone had the same common thing. It was an online test, not a pen and paper.
No.
Okay.
So the whole technical section was consisting only 3 major domains. One is strings, one more is pointers, and one more is hash tables. Whole technical section was around this. So if you see, pointers is the most important. Even I referred previous materials of Novigo Solutions. So the main topic.
You have that material? Huh?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's a PDF. We have it.
Oh, how did you all manage?
From Joseph and other
colleges.
Oh, that's actually very helpful.
Okay. You share it with me, please.
Sure. So the main topic that Novigo Solutions focuses on is strings, even in the interview, even in the assessment. And questions are not very difficult. They are like, you have to think a bit. Let me give an example. Suppose there is a string called Mangalore, and in that they'll pinpoint. It's a let's say they are pinpointing one particular pointer there. So they'll increment that pointer I plus I. Then they'll ask you to print. So at that point you have to see which character will be printed. So that's a string and a pointer concept. So that's the main thing. Then there was hash tables. So hash tables, in the sense, I think it's there in our second year syllabus, hash tables. So a direct question, a very easy question. There were repeated 6 questions on hash tables. Same concept, but a bit of question difference. Then comes strings, pointers and hash tables. Then coming to the aptitude section, comparatively Novigo's aptitude was easy. Every standard question, you have quants and little bit of logical. You have age related questions, upstream, downstream and everything else. The only difficulty was when you start the test, the first thing that pops up is technical section, the 25, which takes a lot of time because you have to trace each and everything. There were recursion question as well. So what happens is the time allotted was 1 hour, 1.5 hours. So technical section would take 1 hour. So you are then remaining 25 questions for aptitude. Aptitude was very easy, but at the end few questions we had to guess, 5 to 10 questions, because there was no time. But they were fairly easy comparatively to other aptitude paper. Novigo's aptitude was easy, technical was easy to medium.
Okay, great. So this gives more clarity because then people will clearly understand what is what, right? So okay, if they can do that. So any engineering students will understand what you're telling, isn't it? Great. So then after that you had what, the next round?
Yeah, I had technical round.
That is the interview?
Interview, yeah.
So how many got shortlisted, do you remember?
52.
Around 52 for first technical round.
Okay.
And he had 2 technical rounds, whereas I had around 3 technical rounds. So first technical round, we had basic string manipulation questions which was given to me, and 2-3 aptitude questions. Aptitude question was related to same as time and speed, and even some generic aptitude questions like, okay, let's see, there is a room and there are 4 switch related concepts. And okay, first round was much more easier. I was called the second round of second technical round. There I had questions related to graphs and trees. It was easy because I had some pre-knowledge in competitive programming, so I was easy to solve that. So after this second technical round, we totally of 20 people got shortlisted for the final technical round, which was held in their office. So yes.
Okay. So how was it for you?
Yeah, so the first technical round was purely on coding. I was given 3 coding problems. So the first question was a string based question. So she gave me a string like my name is Babit. You have to reverse the string. Babit is my name. You have to reverse that. And you have to use C and C++, nothing else. Java was, she allowed Java also, but you should not use any inbuilt.
Java she allowed because you asked, I think.
No, I asked for Python,
okay.
But she told don't use Python because you can easily do that.
So all the time it's always C. I'm telling you students,
Yeah.
always C, please be this thing because all the companies go with that.
Even if you write the code in Python, they'll prefer the person who has written it in C.
Yeah, that's it. So C is mandatory, you can't escape C.
Yeah, so that was the first question, to reverse the string. Reverse the each and every this thing in a string. I think they'll understand. So that was first question. I took a bit of time because in C and C++ it takes a little bit of tracing. She wanted optimized code as well. So I did that. And the second thing that she asked me was, how good are you with recursion? So I told I'm okay, because if I tell I'm good, then recursion is a little bit advanced concept. I knew the difficult questions would pop up. So the first question came was Tower of Hanoi. It's there in our first year syllabus. First year C programming, there is Tower of Hanoi. So she asked me that. I knew the problem statement, how it works. I gave the tracing, but code I wrote later because I couldn't recall exactly what it is. She told me, okay, we'll go ahead, you have traced, we'll go ahead to the next question. So next question was also on recursion. It was multiplication of 2 numbers using recursion. That was fairly easy. So I traced it and I wrote the code. Then she came back to Tower of Hanoi and she wanted me to write the recursive solution. There's something called as, not the whole code, a recursive solution, expression. I wrote that and she was like, do you have any other questions? So I asked about her role. Her role was like programmer analyst. I didn't know what was programmer analyst. So I asked her. So then she explained everything.
Oh, very nice. That's a nice thing to do.
After that, initially she didn't ask me to tell me about myself. She told me, it was like indirect one. She told me whatever is written in your resume, just speak it out. I don't want to read this, just speak it out. That's it.
Okay.
So that was the first technical interview.
So you had a first technical round, and so from 52, how many rounds did it reduce to?
20.
Around 20.
Around 20.
All right.
It was actually not evenly distributed. Few people had.
So see, it all goes with the interview. Suppose they have a doubt on some candidate or something like that, then they'll go. And that could be for 2 reasons. Either the candidate is not really very good or the candidate is extremely good. Okay, sometimes even for those 2 reasons. So it all depends. Yeah. Then third round.
So third round was actually held in their office. So around 20 people actually went for third round, and each of them had their own respective people to have an interview. So there we had an experienced developer who actually went through a resume. They were asking a lot of cross questions about what are the things which actually did it, and how are you able to do it much more better. What are your further approaches to this kind of project? Are there any other solutions? What else can you do with this kind of stuff? So me belonging to a CSE, but so I belong to a CSE branch, but my interests are basically in machine learning. So this developer was actually interested in my projects. So he asked me a lot of cross questions like, okay, why don't we use this kind of classifier? Okay, why don't we use this kind of NLP technique? How would it be? And how would be the efficiency and accuracy and all? So I answered respectively, and he actually liked my responses very well.
How many projects did you do?
Currently around 15, 16.
Oh wow. How many did you do?
5.
15 to 16.
15 to 16.
So juniors, please, this is for you all. 15 to 16. You can't do this at the time of the interview. So when did you start your projects?
I started my project very well before second year.
You didn't do anything in the first year?
No. Because I was actually shifting through a lot of domains. I was going through blockchain first, then I shifted to web, then I shifted to machine learning.
Okay.
So I very well found my domain much more adjustable in machine learning, and I continued learning backend and even front end through that itself. I was able to do a lot of projects. I was even able to integrate a lot of my ML models into this front end and back end. And after this resume review, we had a technical round. So same as my second technical round, they asked us few of questions like segmented trees and graphs. So there were time like around 5 to 10 minutes. We had to find two approaches how to solve this particular problem. I found out the approach, but interviewer asked me like, okay, this is the approach. How can you
What
make
was the question?
Question was related to dynamic programming. So basically, given a particular string, how can we divide this particular string to find the repeatable characters?
Okay.
So there I had an approach. So he was like, okay, what other approach can you use in this? So I was like, okay, I'll try to shift it off. I'll try to put a counter. So he liked my approach and he was like, okay, what are your basic interests? What else? What in depth of machine learning do you know data engineering? Do you know Flask? Do you know Spark? Do you know Hadoop? So I was like, okay, I know few of those. So that's how my interview went.
Yeah, so the second technical interview for me was fully on my resume. So since my projects were mainly focused on web development, they shifted me to a web development lead from this thing. So the first question that he asked me is which framework or which library I use for front end. I told I use React, and back end it's using Node.js and Express.js. Even that person, he was from that domain. Okay. So then he started asking me questions on React. So the first question that he asked is, what is the difference between a class-based component and a function-based component in React? Most of us directly start with function-based component, but we need to know why do we use function-based over class-based. So that's the first question. Second question was towards different promises he asked. What are promises? What are the different ways we can implement promises? There are two types in which we can do. One is async await, one is dot then catch, and one more is a promise class. That's a normal. 3 ways. He told me to write. He gave me a sheet. He told me to write exactly how it is done, syntax of that. Then he went to the backend. He asked me how do you create a server in Express.js. These things are basic. If a student has done some Monstack project, these are like beginning stuff that you do. So each and everyone will be able to answer. Then he asked me what is a model view controller, MVC pattern in backend. He asked me how do you create routes, controllers, and the database. How do you connect the database? So these stuff are quite easy for the person who has done projects. But these are very easy questions. Then at last he asked me a question like it was JavaScript. So he asked me what is vanilla JavaScript? How do you know? And he gave me an array and he told me to find the sum of the array in JavaScript. So that we can do in multiple ways. We can put a map on that. We can put reduce on that. There are different methods in JavaScript, not just single way. You can use for loops. There are different variations of for loops. So I gave my map, using map I gave the approach. And when I went and he told me like he was expecting using reduce because that is more optimized. So then he told yeah it's fine. And at last he asked me do you know Redux? Redux is a toolkit. So he asked me do you know Redux and how it is exactly. At that point I didn't know much. I just told this is how it works, overview. Then he asked me what are the different hooks. All these are front end concept. What are different hooks? Name me some hooks apart from use effect and apart from that do you know any other hooks? Then use context, use memo. All these are hooks he asked me on this. So it was fully on web development since it was there on my resume.
Yeah, so essentially they'll ask you everything that's there on your resume. They don't ask you things which are not there. They're not here to reject you, they're there to recruit you. So actually your resume is your question paper. Whatever you put over there, that is what you're going to be asked. So be very clear as to what you're putting because you're going to be grilled on that. So any tips? And then you had an HR round?
Yeah, HR round was in their office.
Yeah, so what was there?
So in the HR round, it was technical HR. Again, they gave a string question.
Okay. So nowadays, even many times the HR also round they'll have something technical.
Yeah. So the question was very easy. They gave a string engineering. You have to remove the repeated characters. You have to remove double E and print that string. But in C and C++. So that was. I don't think they focused more on coding. It was more on how do you communicate about it. They asked me explain one project. I explained my one project. Then about the company, about my internship, and one more thing. in the final HR round, they had our this thing application. That application contained details which we filled before the online assessment, a night before they sent. That was important actually. We had to mention our projects, we had to mention our internship, we had to mention our certifications. So few people put 1, 2, that's it. That is actually important. They had everything on our final list.
Alright. So for you in the HR?
They asked me about my project. They are actually interested about my project which I built for deepfake detection. So they asked me some cross questions like, okay, what kind of generative algorithm are you kind of using for this distinguishing and all those stuff. I told like I use SR-GANs for basically enhancing the image clarity and by finding out, and I use other GAN techniques for finding out the differential between the original image and generated image. And then they asked me about a simple DP question, which was there will be a string given. You have to basically you have to find the repetitive term in the particular string using DP approach, and the languages which they preferred is only C and C++. Me being interested in machine learning, so I asked, okay, can I do it in Python because it's much more easier way and easier approach. They were like, no, it's strictly in C and C++.
No, this is already, I'm telling you students, it's all the time, it's only C. Any coding that you get is all in C, isn't it? They all prefer C, all the companies, because if you know C, I mean, I'm not a technical person, but what I've understood is if you know C, then you can do anything else. So that's why. So students, please, and that too, you all being IT people. So even a mechanical should be knowing.
Python you should apply for projects. But for these and all, it's C and C++.
It's C and C++,
Then I was able to solve it using C++. So he asked me, okay, what other approach can you use in this? Can you get another approach where I can reduce the number of lines and the complexity in this? So I told, okay, I'll use mappers in this. So it's much more better approaches. So he liked my approach, and then it was basically communication round. He actually understood how where I belong to and how I speak. It was basically based on a communication, the further things. And there was another thing. He called a senior developer who was belonging to machine learning. He asked some stuffs regarding SR-GANs and related to NLP, and he asked me some other approaches. Okay, I'll give you a real-time scenario. This is the let's say this is an organization of water department or something. Just give me what are the different ways, how are you going to use this data? So I told my different ways, like, okay, maybe I can use this data to generate electricity bill, maybe I can use this data to generate the overpopulated area which requires more amount of supply of water or electricity. So he was happy with my answers. He was like, okay, this is one good approach which I actually found for this particular problem. And
Alright. So that was also again based on your resume.
Resume.
Right? So students, whatever you put in your resume, you're going to be quizzed on that. Any tips for the juniors who are watching? Because people think that, oh, now Novigo is coming, so then I will go for Novigo, then I'll see the video. Please watch, these videos are for you when you're in the first year or in the second year. And final years, don't even watch, nothing. Okay, everything has to be done before.
Yeah, so for aptitude, you can refer India Bix, that is more than enough. And for coding,
but you have to practice it, not do
it. You have to keep on practicing it. And for coding, online platform, Geek for Geeks, Lead Code, all those stuff.
Yeah. See, what I've got a feedback is if you can do lead code, then you are good to go.
Actually,
So please do lead code. Students, I'm telling you, see, this is 2025 batch. By the time the 26, 27 is going to be even more stringent because AI is going to take away most of the low-end jobs. So they expect quality engineers. So if you don't know proper coding, so do your hacker earth and all that in the beginning, and then switch on to lead code from the second year at least.
And if you can be a part of any launch pads, that's a good thing. You can talk about that in the HR interviews stuff. Those add a lot.
Yeah.
Like we are part, so it actually helped us indirectly.
Alright. What is your percentage?
9.5.
Wow, good.
94.
94 is 9.4.
9.4.
See, look at them. I mean, how did you manage to get 9.4? I think we should have a session on academics itself. Okay. Any tips for the juniors?
I would like to say that don't lie in your resume. Be confident with whatever projects you've done and be honest. Don't just put like a random thing which you get in GitHub or something. Do your own projects, be confident with your projects, know in depth of what you're currently doing, and mainly learn DSA. Because in the starting few rounds, you will be mainly grilled in DSA. You should be knowing that because let's say like you know simple of DSL like string manipulation and all. Later in further technical round, they might ask some difficult question like DP and segmented kits.
Okay, thank you. So thank you Bhagat and Kirtan, and it's bye from all of us till we meet again.